Hello everyone, welcome to sj'sclasses. It's a painting that we will look into today. The painting is called Proserpine. It was painted by the English poet and painter D.G. Rossetti. You might have heard the name D.G. Rossetti earlier in your literature classes, especially when you read the poem The Blessed Damozel. Here is a short introduction to the poet, painter, illustrator and translator. Gabriel Charles Dante Rossetti was an English poet, illustrator, painter, and translator. You might have noticed that his full name does not coincide with his initialized one, which is D.G. Rossetti. That's because he later changed the order of his names to stress his kinship with the great Italian poet Gabriel Rossetti. He was born in London on May 12, 1828. He founded the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood in 1848 with William Holman Hunt and John Everett Millais. There were actually 7 members in the Brotherhood. James Collinson and Frederick George Stephens were the other painters along with Rossetti, Hunt and Millais. So they were the painters in this Brotherhood. James Collinson, Frederick George Stephens, Rossetti, Hunt and Millais. The non-painters in the group were the sculptor Thomas Woolner and Brotherhood secretary William Michael Rossetti, who was D.G. Rossetti's brother. The group came together in 1848 in reaction to what they conceived to be the unimaginative and artificial historical painting of the Royal Academy. Royal Academy is a place in London where art is made, exhibited and debated. The members in this group, they were inspired by Italian art of the 14th and 15th centuries, and their adoption of the name Pre-Raphaelite expressed their admiration for the Italian paintings before the High Renaissance. Now, High Renaissance is a period in literary history during which there was most exceptional artistic production in the Italian states, particularly in Rome, which was the capital of the Papal States, and also in Florence during the Italian Renaissance. And they imbibed the values of artists before the time of Raphael. Raphael was an Italian painter who lived during the late 15th century and early 16th century. When you analyze Rossetti's paintings and writings, we understand that they are characterized by mysticism and are also filled with rich sensuous imagery and vivid details. His first 2 oil paintings were The Girlhood of Mary and Ecce Ancilla Domini, also called the Annunciation. Annunciation refers to the announcement made by Angel Gabriel to the Virgin Mary regarding the incarnation of Christ. Rossetti is mostly introduced to students of literature through his poem The Blessed Damozel, which was published in 1850 in the first issue of The Germ. The Germ was the pre-Raphaelite magazine. He first received recognition as a poet after the publication of this poem. This poem was written when he was only 18 and it is characteristic of much of Rossetti's later poetry with its sensual detail and theme of lovers parted by death and who long for reunion. Some of his other notable works include Sir Hugh the Heron, a legendary tale in 4 parts, poems, ballads and sonnets, ballads and narrative poems, sonnets and lyrical poems. As we read his biography, we understand that by 1868, Rossetti was in ill health, suffering from physical and mental complaints that burdened him for the rest of his life. Further, a mental breakdown was caused by an attack on his poetry by Robert Buchanan in The Fleshly School of Poetry and Other Phenomena of the Day, that was published in 1872. So, this further worsened his mental predicament. He died of kidney failure on April 9, 1882. So, that's all regarding the painter. Now, let's listen to something about the painting. It is an oil painting made in 1874. In it, Rossetti portrays the Roman goddess Proserpine, also known as Persephone in the Greek mythology, who lives in the underworld during winter. In Roman mythology, Proserpine was the daughter of Ceres. Ceres is the Roman goddess of fertility and agriculture, and her counterpart in Greek mythology is Demeter. So Proserpine, the daughter of Ceres, was carried off to the underworld by Pluto. In Roman mythology, Pluto is the god of the underworld, and his counterpart in Greek mythology is Hades. So Pluto, he took Proserpine to the underworld and he married her despite her love for Adonis. In both the mythologies, both in both Greek and Roman mythologies, Adonis is a youth of remarkable beauty. Now, when Ceres is mother of Proserpine, when Ceres begged Jupiter, Jupiter is the supreme god of the Romans, and his Greek counterpart is Zeus. So, when Ceres begged Jupiter to return her daughter to Earth, he agreed on one condition, that he will bring her back to Earth if she has not eaten any of the fruits in Hades. Hades is the underworld. As Proserpine had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds, it was decreed that she should remain in Hades for 6 months of the year and be allowed on earth for the other 6. So, this is a story behind, or the mythology behind, the character that Rossetti opted for his painting. Now, something about the model he chose. It is said that Jane Morris, who was the wife of William Morris, a British textile designer, poet, novelist, translator, and social activist, and also a close associate of Rossetti and other pre-Raphaelites, served as the model of this painting, and it is her plight that has been symbolically represented through the painting. Rossetti painted Proserpine while staying with the couple at Kelmscott. Kelmscott is a village in southwest England. So it was during his stay with the Kelmscott couple, William Morris and Jane Morris, that he made the painting. 8 oil versions of the painting were made. This is the seventh version of the painting, and it was produced for a wealthy ship owner and art collector, Frederick Leyland from Liverpool, and is at present now in the Tate Collection, London. Rossetti's original idea was to paint Eve holding the forbidden apple, which was a scene from Genesis in Bible, as both the stories are almost directly comparable. Eve and Proserpine both represent females banished for their sin of tasting a forbidden fruit. So in the case of Eve it was an apple, and in the case of Proserpine it is a pomegranate. So Rossetti's original idea was to frame Eve holding an apple. The painting might symbolically represent Jane Morris, who was torn between her husband, the father of her 2 adorable daughters, and her lover, who is Rossetti. So, this is what has been symbolically interpreted from the painting, that Proserpine represents Jane Morris, the wife of William Morris, who was a friend of D.G. Rossetti. So she was caught between her family and her lover, who was D.G. Rossetti. So D.G. Rossetti had an affair going on with Jane Morris, and it's her predicament that has been portrayed through the painting. Now let us look at what Rossetti spoke about the painting. He explained the subject of Proserpine in a letter to W. Turner, who bought a version of the picture in 1877. As I said earlier, there were 8 oil versions of the painting, and one of the versions was purchased by W.A. Turner in 1877. And Rossetti explains his subject to W.A. Turner in one of his letters. And he wrote, "The figure represents Proserpine as Empress of Hades. After she was conveyed by Pluto to his realm and became his bride, her mother Ceres importuned means begged persistently or in an urgent manner. Her mother Ceres importuned Jupiter for her return to earth, and he was prevailed on to consent to this, provided only she had not partaken of any of the fruits of Hades. It was found, however, that she had eaten 1 grain of a pomegranate, and this enchained her to her new empire and destiny. She is represented in a gloomy corridor of her palace with the fatal fruit in her hand. As she passes, a gleam strikes on the wall behind her from some inlet suddenly opened, and admitting for a moment the light of the upper world. And she glances furtively towards it, immersed in thought." So this has been taken from the book Dante Gabriel Rossetti, a record and study, which was published by W. Sharp in 1882. So this is what D.G. Rossetti said about the painting, and to be precise about the subject he opted for his painting. Let us analyze the painting in detail. Proserpine seems to be motionless in the painting, and she seems to be absorbed in thought. The only sign of movement in the painting is the wisp of smoke furling from the incense burner that is placed at the left bottom. Proserpine adorns a delicate, richly hued gown and holds a pomegranate in her left hand. She clutches the wrist of her left hand with the fingers of her right. Her arms are drawn across her front in a protective gesture, and the hands link together almost as if one is attempting to control the other. It is a contorted pose. Contorted means twisted. It is a contorted pose which explains so much about the meaning of the wider picture. For this is an image of inner discord. Discord means a lack of harmony, a lack of mental balance. This is an image of inner discord, a portrait of a life split into two. In the case of Proserpine, her life is split between Earth and the underworld, and in the case of Jane Morris, the model, her life is split between her family and D.G. Rossetti. Proserpine's eyes have the glassy look of a faraway thought. She stands before a ledge. A ledge is a narrow horizontal surface on top of which the incense burner, is placed. So she stands before a ledge on which an incense burner fills the air with a rich scent. A branch of ivy curves in the background, which has been stated and interpreted as a symbol of persistent love and memory because of the way its tendrils cling in the background. As we look at the painting, we understand that the robe's meticulous details give viewers a photorealistic sense of the satiny smooth texture, and the bluish-white light reflected from a nearby window highlights the woman's pale skin against her glossy black hair. On the top right of the canvas, Rossetti included his own sonnet about the ancient myth. I'll read out the sonnet for you. I will explain this sonnet in the next video lesson. Now let us just read through the sonnet. Afar away the light that brings cold cheer unto this wall, one instant and no more, admitted at my distant palace door. Afar the flowers of Enna from this drear dire fruit, which, tasted once, must thrall me here. Afar those skies from this Tartarian grey that chills me, and afar how far away the night that shall become the days that wear. Afar from mine own self I seem and wing strange ways in thought, and listen for a sign, and still some heart unto the some soul doth pine, whose sounds mine inner sense in faint to bring, continually together murmuring, woe me for thee, unhappy Proserpine. So this is a sonnet that he presented on the top right of the canvas. And this poem also pertains to this ancient myth of Proserpine. Various symbols have also been incorporated into the poem and painting alike, like the pomegranate, which signifies captivity and marriage. In the case of Proserpine, her marriage to Pluto, and in the case of Jane Morris, her marriage to William Morris. And even the incense burner is a symbol because it's an attribute of a goddess. The ivy in the background, as I said earlier, is seen as a symbol of clinging memory, which is echoed in the poem as well. The painting is inscribed with the artist's signature and date on a scroll at the lower left, and it's written Dante Gabriel Rossetti, Ritrasse nel Capodanno del 1874, which in Italian means Dante Gabriel Rossetti painted this at the beginning of 1874. On a closer look at the painting, we also see the frame. And the frame was also designed by Rossetti, and the frame is decorated with roundels which resemble a section. Section means a very thin slice. So he even gave a sharp focus to the frame as well, so that it would reflect the story of the protagonist of the painting. And let me conclude by saying that this painting is at present exhibited in the Tate Gallery in London, UK. So that's all. I hope you have an understanding regarding the painting. The sonnet, which is part of this painting, will be explained in the next video lesson. Thank you so much for being with me. If you are here on my channel for the first time, please don't forget to subscribe and also share my channel to students of literature. Thank you so much.